Okay, so the long-awaited time has come. Today we're going to be figuring out what goals I'm going to be focusing on in 2025. And actually I'm going to break this down into a couple of videos because in the past I've showed you guys how I'm breaking down my goals, but I never actually showed you guys how I decide on what goals to even choose. So I created a little framework and Notion page for myself to follow so that I can figure out what goals I want to work on. And today we're just going to do it together because at the moment I have no idea what I want to focus on in 2025. I've recently started planning out my goals in the 12-week year framework rather than planning out the goals spanning over the timeline of a whole year. And since I've been following the 12-week years, I have made the most progress on my goals that I have made in like 4 years. I am going to make a separate video of planning out my goals, so just know that is coming. It's going to come before the new year, so if you want some inspo on how to plan out your goals, that video is going to come. But if you already want to see what Notion page I'm going to be using, because I know that a lot of people are expecting that video from me, I already have a video on that page. That page is a 12-week year page. I have been using it for the past 6 months. I'm going to continue using it because I think it works amazingly. So yeah, I don't want to make this intro too long because I feel like this planning process is going to take me a while. This is the page we're going to be working with. The proportions of the page are a little bit different than what it is originally because I just wanted the dynamic of this screen to look better. This is what the page looks like normally, but obviously it's a little bit squished right now. So essentially we have 9 to 10 steps to plan out our goals. So we have train ChatGPT memory, brainstorm, life audit, outline of the year, prioritize purpose, smart framework, system, doubts and obstacles, and visualize. So the reason that I say 9 to 10 is because train ChatGPT memory is not really a step, but it kind of is a step. So basically this year is the first year that I decided to extensively use ChatGPT in my planning process, and honestly, life-changing. I don't think I will ever plan ever again without ChatGPT, just because it makes you think of things that maybe you wouldn't have thought of. It makes the process a lot easier. Sometimes it's really hard to break down a goal into like habits and tasks and figuring out all the things that need to get done, and ChatGPT is just a very useful tool for that. So keep in mind that I'm going to be using ChatGPT a lot throughout this whole video. So if you do not have access to ChatGPT or you prefer to use a different one, feel free to use any different type of AI that there is. This page is very simple because this is not a page that you're meant to refer back to that often once you plan out your goals. So what I'm going to be doing personally is I'm using this page to figure out what my goals are, but then I'm using my 12-week years page to actually plan out those goals and track the habits and track the tasks and do all of that. And yeah, let's just get into it. So our first step is to train the ChatGPT memory. So this is the only step of the process that I've already completed, so I'm just going to explain it rather than go through it with you. All the other 9 steps I haven't actually gone through, so we're going to go through them together. So what I mean by training ChatGPT memory, basically the more you speak with ChatGPT, the more you tell it about itself, it will update its memory about you based on the things that you tell it. So for example, I told it that I am a Capricorn, that my Enneagram type is 9, that my human design is a manifesting generator. And then I said, like, based on this, ask me follow-up questions, but only questions that are relevant in terms of planning goals. So like, I don't want it to ask questions, are you a cat person or a dog person? Because that's not relevant to me planning out my goals. And it asked me a bunch of questions. I just answered whatever I wanted and asked it to ask me follow-up questions and so on. So now my ChatGPT memory is full, and ChatGPT knows a lot about me as a person, how I function, what my patterns are, what I usually procrastinate with, what my known problems are. So essentially in this moment, ChatGPT is like my second brain, helping me plan my goals from an objective side of view. And actually that brings me to my next point. When you're planning out your goals, if you want to use ChatGPT, make sure to use the same chat the whole time. Like let's say in our first real step, brainstorming, if you already use ChatGPT for this step, then it will have the context it needs to help you in the next step and then the next step and so on. So I've written out 2 prompts here that you can use on ChatGPT. So we have, please ask me a series of reflective and Please ask me a series of reflective and insightful questions to better understand my personality, preferences, and decision-making process so you can help me plan my goals for the new year, and so on and so on. I'm basically trying to make it as specific as possible so it gives you the best questions. And then the second option is if you don't really want to spend a lot of time on this, you can ask it to ask you this or that question. So it could be like, are you a morning person or are you a night person? Do you make decisions based on logic or intuition? So those kind of things that could also be important when planning planning out your goals. If you don't really have time, you can use that prompt. And I also included some of my own examples from my ChatGPT's memory. I have a little frequently asked questions section as well that I made here to answer a bunch of little questions like how will I know when the memory has been updated and all of that. Moving on to the next step. This is the step where we actually start planning together. I just felt like that first part was important. So before we start planning out everything in detail, I'm sure a lot of people have a general idea already of what they want to get done. So let's start with this. I have a few general ideas that I know I want to work on. Okay, honestly, I'm kind of struggling to come up with more goal ideas right now, which is fine because as we go into the next steps, we're going to be adding on more goals before we prioritize. But I have a little ChatGPT prompt here on the bottom that I'm going to use to help me because I feel like my brain is not fully activated right now. I woke up like an hour ago and I feel like when it comes to goal planning and stuff, I actually am much better at doing that in the evenings. Like my brain works better in the evenings. I don't know why I didn't do this in the evening, but okay, so for now, I have 12 goals that I've brainstormed. They're written out in very weird ways. Like, for example, restructure my Notion business. That is not necessarily the wording that I would use, but in this step, we're just brainstorming. So, for example, I have become a regular gym goer. Like, that is the least specific goal ever. Or, like, become properly conversational in French. Not just conversational, properly conversational. So, moving on to the next step, we have our life audit. So, for life audit, we're going to be looking at the different areas of your life individually. So I have broken this down into 9 different areas of your life, and basically what you're going to do is you're going to open up each one and rate your life in that area on a scale of 1 to 5. So there's a little guide here to help you figure out which one you're at, and down here we have a table, and automatically as you're voting on the thing, so for example, let's say I click 3 on personal growth and skills, it's going to automatically update in that table. It feels very personal because you're about to see how fulfilled I am with my life right now. But let's see. Okay, oh my god, so my average rating of my life right now is 2.8 out of 5. I'm surprised by that, to be honest. I think, for example, romantic relationships really brings it down because I am not in one. And finances really brings it down because if we look at finances over here, 1, you may be experiencing significant financial stress, debt, or uncertainty. Maybe that's overreacting. Maybe it should be a 2 out of 5, but financial stress is the biggest stress of my life right now. I'm gonna talk about this in my reflection of 2024 video, but I've made a lot of financial mistakes. I'm paying back for it right now, and I'm really much paying back for it mentally. But the things that matter most to me, like family and home life, friendships and community, we got 5 out of 5s. I'm very happy in those areas of my life. What we're gonna do now is we're gonna pay attention to the lowest ratings and just reflect a little bit on this to maybe give us some more ideas for brainstorming goals. And I'm actually gonna use a ChatGPT prompt to help me brainstorm further. So what I'm gonna say is, after doing a life audit, I rated my finances relatively low and I'd like to make tangible improvements. Could you help me brainstorm specific actions I can take to enhance this area? Okay, so one idea that I like that it just gave me is, if I feel like most of the reason why my finance score is so low is because of financial stress, think about what specifically gives you financial stress. And for me, part of the big reason I'm stressed out right now is because I have a lot of debt to be paying back, and whenever I can, I pay back as much of it as possible, and I don't actually have any sort of emergency fund. And when things come up, and they have come up before, I don't have an emergency fund to fall back on. So even though it is my goal to pay off all my debts, I think actually before I pay off my debts, I think it's necessary for me to have a little bit of an emergency fund. So I'm gonna add that in. I'm gonna add on that I want to create really consistent morning and night routines, which includes having a consistent sleep schedule, because to someone this might not be like a big goal because it's like you do it or you don't, but for me, I have had inconsistent morning and night routines for the past couple of years, and the inconsistent sleep schedule has honestly affected my health a lot, especially my physical health and appearance. Like, that's part of the reason why that score is so low, because honestly my sleep is quite bad and I feel like sleep rules everything. I think maybe to add on to that, instead of just having create consistent morning and night routines, I think we're gonna do lower cortisol. Not literally, because I'm not gonna go and do a blood test for cortisol and then compare if it lowered, but lower stress. Definitely. Anyway, we have some more frequently asked questions here, but I'm not really struggling with any of these things. So moving on to our next step, which is the outline of the year. So in this step, we're gonna basically write out the things that we already know are happening. And the reason for doing this is because sometimes we want to do all these things and then we write out our outline for the year and we realize our year is actually really, really busy and we're already planning a little bit too much. Or maybe vice versa, you know, maybe you plan out your year and you realize that actually I'm gonna be stable in one place all the time and I don't really have any big events going on, and maybe I can actually pick up a little bit more. Okay, so this is what we have in our plan right now. I know that in January I'm gonna be spending the whole month doing my intensive Thai course here in Bangkok. February I'm spending a month in the Philippines, which I haven't shared anywhere, but I'm excited for that. March, I think back to Bali. That's fully the plan right now, like fully the plan right now, but it's not like the ticket has been booked, but that's fully the intention for now. And then we have the girls Bali trip, which is going to be, I think, the 15th of July, which I'm really excited for. By the way, if you didn't know, I'm hosting a girls Bali trip. We still have a couple of spaces left. I'm going to leave a link in the description. It's happening in July. You still have plenty of time to join us, and you don't have to pay the full price until like mid-April. So right now you can just pay the deposit. You can join us. We have like, I think 13-14 girls right now from like 10 different countries, which is crazy. But anyway, moving on. August, back to Europe, question mark. That is the plan. Honestly, I am really loving Bangkok right now, and I'm gonna have to be in Indonesia for like April, May, June, and I don't think I'm gonna be in Bangkok during those times. So I'm like, maybe before I go back to Europe, maybe I'd go back to Bangkok for just a little while, but probably not. Like, that's a very small chance, but that's why the question mark is there for now. And I also wrote down that somewhere in like August, September, I want to fully take off 2 to 3 weeks to spend with family, because this is the longest I think in my life that I haven't seen some of my family members. Like before in the past, I've always made it the biggest priority to visit them at least once a year. But at this point, this March, it's going to be a whole year since I saw my dad, for example. So by August, that's going to be a year and a half since I saw him. So, and also my family is spread out over so many countries. Like I know for a fact that when I'm back to Europe, in the first month, I have to visit 3 different places because those are like where my closest family live. So yeah, as a conclusion for me, I don't think I'm gonna add on any more goals because I think the goals I have right now are plenty, but I do think that I want to aim high for the goals that I do have. So for example, teach yoga on a retreat / host my own retreat. I do think I'm gonna put this as a separate goal. Okay, so moving on to our next step, we have prioritize. This is actually my favorite page that I've made out of all of these. It's very extensive. There's a lot to it. We have 3 criteria that we're gonna be judging each goal. So we have the impact that that goal makes on our life, the effort that it takes to work on that goal, and also how aligned it is to your long-term vision, what you want for yourself, like in the far future. And basically, we're going to be giving each goal its own score. So for example, if it's high impact on my life, medium impact on my life, low impact on my life, and you can see here as well what that means for each thing. So for example, a high impact goal is a goal that has the potential to create lasting change or drive significant progress in your life. Whereas for example, a high alignment goal is a goal that directly aligns with your core values, passions, and long-term vision. So we're gonna judge our goals based on these criteria, and then I'll get back to you. Okay, so I really struggle with this one, to be honest, because I feel like most of mine are high and medium. I only have one low impact goal, which is spend a month or 2 in France. Obviously, that's important to me. I really want to do that, but it doesn't really make a big difference if I do that this year or if I do it next year. Like, it's not a huge thing. It's just kind of like a fun goal. We're gonna now judge our goals based on the effort it takes. So a high effort goal is a goal that has a lot of steps. It takes a lot of effort. Maybe it even kind of stresses you out a little bit to think about it. It seems like a big goal. And a low effort goal is something that, like, I don't know, for example, become a regular gym goer. I would put that as a low effort goal. Yes, it still takes time. Yes, it still takes energy. I'm not trying to like diminish that goal in any way by saying that, but at the end of the day, it's a high effort for the first 1 or 2 weeks when I'm first going and I'm getting over gym anxiety and whatever. But once I start going, it's not very high effort. It's just about showing up and like continuing on with it. Whereas, for example, restructure my Notion business, high effort. There are so many steps that go into that. I already have like a long list of, I think honestly at this point there's like 60 to 70 tasks on that list of like things I have to do and redo and stuff. So I already know that that's a high effort goal. So okay, so I wrote out the effort for all the goals except for 5 goals because I realized that these goals, like expected, are very badly worded right now. Like for example, example, pay off all debts. I don't know if that's high effort or medium effort because I did not write out what the action behind that goal is. I'm gonna keep those as blank. We're gonna go into the SMART framework step next. So I'm gonna change the steps around because initially I put the purpose step before the SMART framework, but if you get this template, this is gonna be changed around because I just realized that doesn't make sense. It makes much more sense to have the SMART framework next, followed by the purpose. But what we're gonna do is we're gonna continue on. We're gonna move on to alignment, and then in the next step, I'm gonna rephrase these goals, and then we can come back to this step. So alignment, these are the goals that I feel like directly align with my core value, my passions, and my long-term vision. So these are the goals that make you really excited because you feel like you're moving in the right direction in life. Again, using my own examples, host my own retreat, that is very, very, very high alignment for me. That makes me very excited. Or even spend a month or two in France, high alignment because I love slow traveling. That is something I want to continue in my life for a long time, and who knows, maybe I would love living in France and I would potentially live there in the future. We don't know. So for me, that is high alignment. That is something that makes me really excited, and I feel like it shows me that I'm moving in the right direction in life. Okay, so that is my alignment for the rest of the goals. Again, not excluding the ones that I'm going to be rephrasing now anyway. So now I'm going to see a table of all of my goals and the score that each goal gets. So for example, teaching yoga consistently online, that should be my number one priority goal based on this table. Take this with a pinch of salt. This is not necessarily like this is what you have to do. At the end of the day, it's a suggestion, but it's just interesting to see because once you see like the impact, effort, and alignment that that goal has in your life, you see the things that are most important to you. And also what you can do here to make it even more specific to what you want. You see a lot of goals here have the same scores. So for example, all of these goals have a score of 7, but the way they're ranked, it depends on what is important to you. So you can play around with the sort. So the score should always be at the top, but if you move around, the impact score, the alignment score, the effort score is going to change the way it's sorted. So if you don't know how to sort it, you can use this guide here. So you might want to prioritize impactful goals this year if last year wasn't very eventful in terms of achieving your goals, or you might want to prioritize alignment goals if last year was full of goals that made a difference but you didn't feel like you made significant progress towards your long-term vision. Or maybe you want to prioritize low effort goals if last year was just heavy, busy, and you're just tired. Like you just want to do the things that maybe are lower effort but they bring you more joy. For example, if I had a little bit more of a difficult year and next year I want to prioritize my low effort goals, I'm going to bring this up to the top. And as you can see, it's still going to go based on the score. So the scores haven't changed. The one that has 8 is still on the top. But after that, it's going to prioritize the lower effort goals. So for example, become a regular gym goer, start actively cycle syncing, spend a month or two in France. For me, the way I'm going to do it is I'm going to put impact at the top because out of these 3, this is the one that I definitely aligned with the most. I think last year, again, I'm going to do a video reflecting on my 2024, but last year was not my best year in terms of my mental health, my worst year actually. So yeah, this year I'm definitely prioritizing impact over effort and alignment. However, after impact, effort or alignment, I think after impact I'm gonna have to put alignment above effort. So yeah, this is gonna give you a prioritization based on your values and your priorities. And then the last thing for this step is we have a little checkbox thing here to check off the goals that you want to bring into the next year. So this is more for the people that are setting like 50 goals and they want to work on 50 things. If you have too many priorities, the word priority loses its meaning and you don't actually have any priorities. And I think this is something I've only realized really in the past year. And again, I've had to learn this the hard way. I've had to learn this on social media where people can see my mistakes of how I overplan. But right now I'm at 16. I think 16 for a year is okay, but I think it's going to change now because now when I go into the SMART framework, these goals are going to expand. Like these 5 goals are going to expand and also like find real consistency with posting online. This is so vague right now. I'm very positive that this goal is going to end up breaking down into 3 different goals. So we're going to come back to this after we do the SMART framework. And also I've been planning for 2 hours, so actually we're gonna take a little break, maybe switch locations. For the past hour I've been back and forth with ChatGPT and I have not fully formulated my goals, but we have gotten a lot closer and I wanted to do a little check-in. So let's go goal by goal and I'm gonna show you how I transformed the goal, but keep in mind I'm still not finished writing them. A lot of them don't have very specific things written out yet. You're already gonna see my goals obviously here because we're planning them together, but if you want to know a little bit more context, I am going to post a separate video for that. So I changed host own retreat to host or launch on yoga retreat. Oh my god, English. Sorry. I made it a little bit more specific by the fact that it has to be predominantly yoga. So for lowering stress, I decided to combine this with creating consistent morning and night routines, because meditation is the primary way for me personally to lower my stress, and meditation is always a part of my morning and night routine. So lowering stress will be a result of my morning and night routines. So for now, I have not formulated this into a proper goal. Right now it's just consistent routines, lower stress, meditate. Next up is save X for emergency fund. I think I'm gonna try to save 5,000 euro. That's gonna be my goal, but I'm gonna put that on the bottom for now, and I'm gonna explain why in a minute. So for restructure or work on Notion business, this is actually a huge goal. So I broke this down into 3 goals, but this is actually one of the only goals that I'm gonna keep kind of private. So we're gonna have transform Notion business Q1, Q2, Q3. So for balancing my kapha imbalance, I actually put this together with cycle syncing and going to the gym regularly, which might not seem like it goes together, but I'm gonna explain my logic in a minute. But for now, like I said, it doesn't have a name. It just says consistent in the gym, cycle syncing, body recomp, and kapha imbalance. I actually didn't mention body recomp in my goals earlier, but that is something I want to work on, so I'm just gonna delete these ones. Then catch up on taxes. I'm gonna rephrase that to say just pay taxes on time. I'm technically not behind with them. Next, find real consistency with posting online. I already knew this was going to be broken down into like 3 different goals. Right now they're still very vague. We have post X videos on YouTube, and then also post X times on TikTok and X times on Instagram. Okay, now instead of spending a month or 2 in France, I decided I want to change this to do a language course in France, in French, because that's what I'm doing here in Bangkok right now. I came to Thailand and I'm doing a 1-month-long Thai course, and honestly, I feel like it's a very fun way to learn a language, and it's also a very natural way to get to know the place where you're living. So yes, I could just go live in France for a month, but I feel like doing a language course in France resonates much more with me than just living there by myself. For pay off all debts, I'm gonna change this to pay off tax debts, because I also have a student loan, but the student loan is really not like, it's not necessary to pay it off next year at all. I think ideally I would. There's a lot of money related goals here, and I think if I just say pay off all debts, I'm gonna be like next level stressed. Okay, for the full declutter, I just shortened it, but it's basically the same. I just want to do a full digital declutter. I mean physical too, but I already live out of 2 suitcases, so there's not much I can do for that. Teach yoga on a retreat. I'm also gonna keep this, but I'm also gonna move it to the bottom. And teach yoga consistently online. I'm just gonna say teach yoga online. So quick explanation of why some goals were moved to the bottom. So this was a personal thing. This is not part of the Notion page, because this is something I do personally, and not everybody might structure their goals this way. Like I mentioned earlier, I personally plan out my year in 12-week year increments. So all of these goals, except for these 5, are goals that I'm gonna have in my 12-week years. These goals on the bottom are like result goals. They're goals that I just get to tick off, but there's not really much work I can do towards it. Even teaching yoga on retreat, I'm putting that as a result goal, because either I'm gonna teach yoga on my own retreat, which I already have as a separate goal, or I'm gonna teach yoga on somebody else's retreat, where it's like there's not much of a process there. It's like somebody invites me or I apply for one, but there's like not much of a process there that has to be like tracked. So yeah, these 5 goals on the bottom for me are gonna be like result goals, and they're goals that are going to be in my notes that I'm going to be checking every month, but it's not goals that I'm going to be like actively working on, whereas these 12 goals are goals that I'm going to be actively referring back to and using in my Notion pages. So yeah, I'm actually still not ready to move on to the next goal, because I haven't actually fit in my goals into the SMART framework, because I hadn't fully expanded on my goals yet. So now that I understand what my goals are, I am going to try to make sure they fit into the SMART framework as much as possible. Okay, so we rephrased some of the goals. This goal is still not like a very nicely written goal, but the goal in itself is to lower my cortisol levels, and the way I'm going to be doing that is through consistent routines, sleep schedule, and meditation practice. Then this goal also couldn't find a way to rephrase it well, so I might still change it before I film the goals video, but it's basically to achieve body recomp through strength training, cycle syncing, and balancing my kapha. And then for the social media goals, I decided to go for 52 videos on YouTube in the year, Twitter, 130 videos on TikTok, and 130 posts/reels on Instagram. I'm gonna explain the numbers in my goals video because I don't want to go into it too much here. And then teach 50 yoga classes online, complete a French course in France, and I don't think I changed anything else. I think I added this onto the goal that I want to hold a 1-hour conversation in French because otherwise it's not specific. And then these are all time bound because all of these I want to be done within the year. They're all relevant to my long-term goals. I also believe these are all achievable. No, I don't know why I hesitated. I hesitated maybe on the emergency fund. It's not unrealistic for me to save 5,000. I am healing a really bad relationship with money. So the debts I have, they're pretty hefty. Maybe I'll change this to 2,000. It's not that I don't have money to save up, but it's just that I have a lot more money that needs to be going here right now. So everything else I would say is achievable. Measurable, I think everything that needs to be measurable is, like for example, complete a full digital declutter. I'm going to be using my own Notion page for that. So to someone, this might not be specific, but I have a whole guide. Like I've released a whole Notion page on this and I know exactly what I'm going to be doing. So if through words some of these are not specific, for me they're very specific. Okay, so now that I have my goals, let's go back to prioritize because now I can figure out the impact and effort more specifically of these goals. And then I know what to work on first, for example, in the first quarter. So my biggest priority is, not surprisingly, teach yoga online and also to teach yoga on retreat. The only thing is that for me now it's mixing my processes with my results. So what I'm gonna do, I'm just gonna do this for me. This is not gonna be in the template because not everybody does it the same way. But if you do want to do this, you could do this. So I'm gonna add a type and we're just gonna have process and result, and then I'm gonna group them so that they're separate. Okay, cool. So now I can actually see the goals based on the process, like the goals that I actually need to work on, and the results. Because now, for example, when I plan my 12-week year, technically I should focus on these 3 goals first. Well, actually, I would focus on these 3 first because this one has to be done after this one, but it just ranks higher because the alignment of it is higher. So yeah, I think I'm gonna basically follow that plan. I'm not gonna do this in the first quarter just because I have a trip coming up and I'm focusing on that first. So might be like in the 3rd quarter or 4th quarter. But I think these first 3 are probably gonna be my first focus for the first 12-week year. Oh, and I also have to not forget to check all of these because these are the ones I'm gonna be focusing on. I'm not gonna focus on the result goals. I'm gonna put that in my notes, but it's not going to be the goals that I'm breaking down, like the purpose and stuff. So now when we move on to the purpose, these are going to come up and I'm going to spend some time and I'm going to use my ChatGPT prompts here to really figure out like a very, very, very clear reasoning for my why behind each of these goals and to give it like a very strong motivation. I don't think I'll share the why, so I'm going to fill this out and then we're going to skip to our next step. Okay, so moving on to the next step, which is system. This is essentially our goals broken down into habits. So a lot of people, they write down their goals in their notes app and they never write out how to actually do it day to day. And like I said here, your days are made up of habits, and the more you can align them with your goals, the more likely you are to succeed. I plan this out in depth in my 12-week year planning, and like I said, I'm going to be doing that later on. So yes, I can write out all the habits for these goals right now, but it doesn't really make too much sense because I'm literally going to be doing that in the next steps, like as I'm planning out my 12-week years. So I'm personally going to skip this for today. But if you don't go into depth with planning out your goals, if you don't use like a 12-week year system or something like that, I would not recommend to skip this step. If you don't write out the habits, some of these goals are just going to go undone. There's also some ChatGPT prompts here that can help you. And yeah, I think this is a really important step, and I'm not skipping it. I'm literally going to be doing it tomorrow when I'm planning out my 12-week year. And our next step, and I think this is the final step, is writing out our doubts and obstacles. You also don't have to spend too much time on this, but I think this is really useful. Sometimes when we look at a goal that we set for ourselves, we might look at it and be like, like I'm a little unsure about this one. Like, can I actually really achieve this, or da-da-da-da? Or we might have some obstacles that we've had with that goal before, and we want to kind of plan ahead of time. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna look through my goals and I'm gonna see if any of them bring up a doubt. Okay, so I wrote, I'm doubting myself because a lot of my goals have to do with being really consistent, and since I've been really consistent in the past, I feel like I don't trust myself anymore. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna copy and paste this part because this is not specific to any goal. This is just like a doubt in general. See, this is why it's so important to provide context. Like every goal you've achieved so far, like building your YouTube following or launching your Notion taken courses in the past was a result of taking action, even if it wasn't always linear. Like, that kind of context always makes this advice so much more relatable. Okay, so what I wrote out is past consistency doesn't mean you're incapable of being consistent. It simply means you've learned important lessons about how you work and what doesn't serve you. And this is really useful to have because I can even create affirmations based on this. So for example, I could just copy this and say like, okay, based on this statement, write out 10 affirmations to repeat to myself daily or something along those lines. I actually really love these. I might save some of these. And then the next part are obstacles. So if you already have an obstacle in mind, like maybe there's a goal that you already worked on and you know you struggled with something specific, then you can write it out. And then there's a ChatGPT prompt for that if you already have a specific obstacle in mind. But if you're not sure what obstacles might come up, then you can also use a prompt. So this is what I'm gonna use. I'm just gonna copy all of my goals in, and I'm gonna say, based on the goals I've set, what common obstacles might I face and how can I prepare for and overcome them? And anything that resonates, I'm gonna put in here. Okay, and then now that we've done this step, we can move on to the fun visualizing part. So this full page is full of so many ChatGPT prompts that you can use to have fun with your goals and visualize your goals. And this is my favorite part, honestly. Like, this whole planning process, yes, it has like drained my brain a little bit, but now I get to do all these fun things. Like, for example, creating personalized affirmations based on my goals and like my concerns and my doubts and all of that. Writing myself a motivational speech, like as if someone is giving a TED talk about my life, like something along those lines. Or asking ChatGPT to generate a whole playlist for me based on my goals where it like captures the energy of my journey and everything. All of these prompts are so freaking fun, and I think this is what I'm gonna do this evening. I'm just gonna like do them, I'm gonna read them, I'm gonna cry to them probably. There's one that I've done here before which I literally cried to before. It was like write a loving letter to yourself from your future self, something along those lines. And this is also where the vision board comes in. So for the vision board, I'm not gonna be doing my vision board on here right now because I am planning to do a whole vision board evening on the 30th or on the 31st of December. But yeah, those are my goals. Like I said, I'm gonna do a whole video breaking down my goals. So even though you already kind of saw them here a little bit, if you want to know a little bit more in detail about like why I'm working on each goal, what each goal kind of means for me, then I'm gonna do a whole video on that. And if you want to see me breaking down my goals into an actual plan, I'm also gonna be doing a video on that. So whole little New Year series going on here. I hope you guys enjoy this lengthy video. If you want to get this template, it's gonna be available in my description. I had so much fun making this template, so there's gonna be a very nice discount code for you guys in the comments. And if you have any questions on, you know, my planning process or anything, let me know. Also, let me know what your goals are. It's so motivating to read other people's comments, and I really want to know what your goals are because I am still open to potentially changing some of my goals, like one or two maybe, but in general, what you saw today are my goals for 2025. So I hope you enjoyed this video, and I will see you guys in the next video. Peace, love you all.